Celebration. That's what brought me here, my friends. That's what brought me here to this campus. You. Oh, I'm like, we just had church. We can go home now, right? Whew. That was amazing, amazing. I just feel blessed. You know, it's so easy to get caught up in the things that don't matter and to put weight on things that don't matter. This matters. You matter. Thank you. So we're talking about Umoja today. And Umoja is the Kiswahili word that means to work for and uphold unity in our communities and in the world. Now, my thing is, I love to bring new cultures and new religious experiences and new spiritual awakenings, and I love to bring it from various cultures and bring it here. And since today is December 26th, it is the first day of Kwanzaa. So I figured I'd tell you a little bit about Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is a week-long celebration. It's in the United States, it's US-based, in which the African culture, the African heritage is honored in African Americans. Now, I'll be honest with you, I never heard of Kwanzaa till I went away to college. Right? That's the first time that I heard about Kwanzaa. And because I was born in the UK, it's not part of my heritage. It's not part of my cultural tradition. And I'm sure for many of you sitting here, it's not a part of your culture either, or maybe not even in your awareness. But one of the things that I love about New Thought and why I'm a New Thought minister is because we honor all. We don't give it lip service. Those lip service days, they're gone, my friends. They're gone. We honor all. And what we are is we are about including and transcending. But we cannot include and transcend what we do not know. So I want you to know, what is Kwanzaa? It's nothing to be afraid of. Why is it celebrated? Why do we want to be aware of this as a celebration and a holiday? And then, once we have that understanding, we individually can decide and discern, what do I include? What do I include and transcend? Something? A little bit? All? Nothing? But without the knowledge, how do we make that discernment? With me? When I first discovered Kwanzaa, I actually thought, well, this is bizarre. This is like a made-up holiday. What? That's bizarre. But after learning about the impact of slavery in the US, the degradation of the Jim Crow laws, the economic disparities that people of color have experienced, I can better understand why this holiday is so important for some. And I also concluded, as I've been doing more and more studying, that all holidays are made up, right? They're human constructs. So it's just really interesting. So let's talk a little bit about Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is a relatively new holiday compared with other holidays that we celebrate. It is a synthesis of various cultures and practices from different African people, primarily the Ashanti and Zulu tribes. Kwanzaa starts on December 26th, and it's celebrated for 7 days. And then on the 7th day, there is gift giving and a big feast. The professor and chairman of African Studies at the University of the California State University, Dr. Karenga, is the one who created Kwanzaa in 1966. And he did that as a response to the Watts riots in LA in 1965, as a way to bring African American people together as a community. You see, the city of Watts had turned into a powder keg because there were African Americans that migrated to the West Coast, getting away from the Jim Crow laws, but also because it was a wartime and there was lots of jobs. But as they moved into this area, they changed the population from 4% to 14% African Americans. And they were still experiencing discrimination in Watts. So that was the powder keg there. Dr. Karenga found that he wanted to create a holiday that would honor the intrinsic truth of who we are. Do we not talk about that all the time in Unity? What is our truth? Remembering our truth, that we are divine human beings. And Dr. Karenga researched African harvest celebrations and combined several aspects of that to be the foundation for Kwanzaa. The name Kwanzaa is derived from the phrase Matunda ya Kwanzaa, which means first fruit or harvest in Swahili. And the celebration often has singing and poetry and storytelling, dancing, drumming, and of course, feasting. Dr. Karenga created 7 guiding principles to be focused on during the week of Kwanzaa. And the 7 principles represent the values of African culture that help build and reinforce community among African Americans. So there are 7. It's unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith. You'll notice I've got a picture up there of the candles that are used. Looks very similar to like a Hanukkah menorah, doesn't it? But as opposed to the 8 candles that are celebrating the miracle of 8 days of oil in the temples for the Jewish faith, this has the 7 candles there representing the 7 principles. Very similar again to the Advent wreath that we just used, right? Which for each week was a theme of hope, love, peace, joy, right? And then the Christ consciousness. So I love looking at the similarities between what we do, what other faiths do, and how it all comes together. The middle candle right there is the one that is lit first, and that one is representing unity. Now, be aware, Kwanzaa is not a holiday that I personally celebrate. As I mentioned to you, I didn't really know anything about it. Just like I don't personally celebrate Diwali, I don't personally celebrate Hanukkah or Ramadan or any of those holidays, but I can honor those who do celebrate them. And I can enjoy certain aspects of the holidays that make sense for me, that give me another way to look at the divine, to look at my truth, to help me to awaken. And I've been blessed with having friends that have invited me both to Hanukkah and Ramadan celebrations. I gotta tell you, Ramadan was a whole bunch harder than Hanukkah because of the level of fasting that Ramadan includes. Kwanzaa is simply a call to remember the truth. We are all of God. We are all of God, and we're responsible for our brothers and our sisters. In today's talk, I'm simply going to focus on the first principle, which is Umoja, unity. And that is that call to strive and maintain and uphold unity. Now, Umoja asks us to develop and sustain the idea that there is only oneness. Does that sound familiar? Oneness means that we are all of God. We are all aspects of the divine in skin. Sounds a little familiar. I think that's what? Unity's second principle, correct? Human beings have the spark of divinity within them, the Christ within them. Their very essence is of God, and therefore they are inherently good. And in her book, The 5 Principles by Ellen Davenport, she writes this: wherever we originated physically, we are first an idea in God mind. And if God is all there is, and everything is God, how could we be anything but divine? We're talking about the image of God, the Imago Dei. This is what we're talking about. And keeping our second principle in mind, then how can we disregard anyone else? How can we disregard anyone else? If anything, it's a call for the practical application of knowing that we must walk our talk. Andrea Leonard writes this about Umoja. Umoja urges us to practice a principled and peaceful togetherness, rooted in mutual respect, justice, care, and concern, security of person, equitable shared goods. And it calls us to stand in solidarity with the oppressed, suffering, and struggling peoples of the world in the cooperative achievement of these goods. You see, Leonard mirrors my understanding of living in unity and oneness with each other. Unity is not theoretical. Did you hear me? Unity is not theoretical. We cannot say to someone, there is only oneness, and then turn around and treat them less than. We cannot say, we love you to someone, and then ignore their pain and suffering. We cannot say, we are the Christ, and then ask them to persecute another person. That isn't living that second principle, my friends. That's not doing our own shadow work. We are living in a time in the world where we feel dissonance in our lives. At times, that level of uncomfortability makes us cranky and judgmental. That's right. In our stress, we may operate from the, we want what we want when we want it. And many times, we don't care who has to be marginalized or inconvenienced for our well-being. We may not even realize that's what we're doing or that's what we're asking of others. So here are some questions for you to ponder. Do your needs have to be met at all times? And if not, someone has to be wrong? Are you longing for the good old days when you could say whatever you said and no one would take offense? Do you think your job is more important than others, especially if you have the degree that you hold? Does your personal mission supersede everyone else's? If you answered yes to any of these questions, well, first I'm going to welcome you to the human race. Yes, indeed. That means you're just like the rest of us. And second, it may be an indicator that you are out of alignment with that second principle. Here's something else to think about. When we are in the midst of change, our humanity wants to try to control people, places, and things. Because we think that if we control those, we will feel that we are in control. And when we are in the throes of change, we often feel fear. Fear of the unknown. Even if we are moving in a better direction, even if this is for our highest good, we still don't like that feeling of fear, that feeling of not knowing, that feeling of not being in control. Unaware beliefs drive our thoughts and our behaviors. But when we are feeling fear, oh my goodness, when we are feeling not in control, those unconscious biases seem to go into overdrive. Now, if you just heard that phrase, unconscious biases, and you felt your sphincter kind of squeezed together, let's talk about that for a moment. Because here's the thing, every one of us has unconscious biases. Every one of us. You're human. You've got them. Every one of us has it. I have them. Did you know that? Your minister has unconscious biases. Yes. And that term isn't to guilt trip you, it's not to guilt trip me. It's a term to bring your awareness to what is hidden. It's another form of shadow work. So in the previous example that I used where I said we cannot say we are the Christ and then ask for someone else's persecution, the conscious value is what? What do you think is the conscious value? The Christ, right? We're aware we want to be the Christ. That's the conscious value. The unconscious value is believing that someone is unworthy based on our social upbringing and that they need to be persecuted. That's the hidden. And that causes us dissonance. So I'm inviting you into the conversation of accepting that if you are breathing, I think you all are, right? If you're breathing, then you have unconscious biases. It's simple. And it's not about right or wrong. It doesn't mean that you're bad. It makes you human. And then, if you want to claim that you are awoke or that you are awakened, then you need to start asking questions. And here's the first question that I start with. How does our unconscious bias negatively impact this relationship or worldview? So I'm going to give you a recent snippet from my life, because sometimes, you know, when we talk in these terms, we can't see them in real life application. So my life is full of them, so you're lucky. The other day, last week, Graham and I were shopping, and we were shopping at an upmarket store. I wanted to get some gourmet foods for Christmas. We were having my good friend, best friend over there, Karen Scapple, who I met in seminary. I like to call her Reverend Dr. Karen Scapple because she hates the Reverend Doctor. But that's what she is. So she was coming in from Kansas City, and I just really wanted to splurge on her. Super excited. We haven't seen each other in a couple of years. And I'm at the deli counter, and I'm seeing this. And at the 15-minute mark of waiting, you get it. I got impatient. 15 minutes. And there's this one lovely girl that's at the deli counter serving everyone that's online there. And then I look to my right about 15 feet away, and there are three employees hanging out in the bakery. And then I look to my left, the cheese section. There are 3 people hanging out in the cheese section as well. I'm like, So I said, could you ask someone to help you? And she said, we're short-staffed. But do that. I'm seeing 6 people, like doing nothing. So I breathed, and I realized my level of impatience wasn't going to be productive for either of us. And at that point, I left. But I had to ask myself the question that I'm asking you to ask yourselves. How does my unconscious bias negatively impact this connection, this relationship, my worldview? You see, I realize my unconscious bias in that situation is, if I'm a paying customer in an upmarket place, then I expect to be served quickly, efficiently, and with a smile on their face. All right? And if that doesn't occur, then I'm judging. Ooh, they did not get proper training. Ooh, they are not qualified for this job. Ooh, they are so rude, right? And then I have to continue investigating. And I'm like, well, where did I get that unconscious bias from? Well, part of it is cultural, because of the U.S. cultural beliefs around service workers, what they should and should not do. And then the other piece of that is I spent 10 years of my career as a trainer and consultant training on service skills and soft skills, right? And then after that encounter, I had to ask myself, could I have handled that situation differently? Could I have done better? I mean, I wasn't rude to the individual, but I did not add. Did you hear me? I did not add to that connection. And then my answer came. If I was able to deconstruct my erroneous belief about what customer service should look like, then waiting beyond 15 minutes didn't mean it wasn't good service. Do you understand that? Okay. So in that moment, then I realized, well, then I could have been less impatient. And with this new level of awareness, I get to create anew. Because here's the deal, my friends, all of us are living in a new time. Did you know it's a time called the Great Resignation? The Great Resignation means that it's an unprecedented time in our society where people are choosing to leave jobs that aren't fulfilling for them, leave jobs that aren't paying well, not take jobs because they should take a job if it doesn't align with the truth of who they are. So that means today it's probably likely that there's going to be longer waits. Probably likely. And then guess what? I get to manage my emotions. It's not somebody else's responsibility to manage my impatience, to manage my judgment, right? It's mine to manage my emotions. And how do I do that? In the way that I've just described, by deconstructing what's my unconscious bias, and how do I shift that? So I get to be aware that if I choose to shop, I need to expect a longer wait time. And I can choose to be grateful that my body functions enough to be standing someplace for 15, 20 minutes. Amen? Yes. And I get a choice to be grateful for this person choosing to work in tough circumstances. And I get to be thankful for the service. That's a whole different situation, is it not? Yeah. So in this example that I gave you, I know it sounds really trivial, but you know what? Our lives are filled with little daily trivial things that we take on and make huge. Well, can you believe I had to wait, right? And then it's like just this ongoing snowball. But those are the moments that we deconstruct. Those are the moments that we transform and shift. Those are the moments that we have the opportunity to make this world a better place, not just for us, but for everyone that we touch. So as I sat in the car after shopping, I realized I was really uncomfortable with the interaction with that employee. Why? Because I was out of alignment. I was out of alignment with my truth because I want to be the light in the world to everyone I see, to everyone I touch. I was out of alignment. Get it? So the shift is on me. So doing this work on investigating our unconscious biases is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to look at our day-to-day. Are we really practicing our principles in our lives? Because having them in theory, my friends, worthless. Did you hear me? Theory, worthless. But really absorbing them, stepping out into the world as a unitic, and that's usually a good thing, a unitic allows us really to be that light, to be that loving presence, to be God in skin. So in this small example, I'm hoping that you get that we can shift to honoring oneness in our everyday life if we choose to practice the truth, if we choose it. So I wish you and yours a season of creating a new and also in truly being the light of the world. Namaste.